Welcome back to 1023 Culture. Today I have my friend Kareem with us, and we had some technical difficulties and got about 12 to 14 minutes of good stuff going on, and I realized I didn't have any audio. So, we're starting over. Hey. so
Hey.
welcome, Kareem. This is if you saw by the title, this is an American Christian, that's me, with an Arab Muslim, which is Kareem, obviously. And Kareem, tell us a little about yourself. I know you're from Syria, so go ahead and take over and tell us a little bit about your story because my audience knows too much about me already.
Okay, cool. So my name is Kareem. I'm originally from Palestine. I grew up in Syria and then I moved to Dubai. I studied, I worked, and I met my lovely wife, and then I moved to Switzerland.
Okay, well that's the nutshell right there. So we're gonna dig a little deeper again. We've already been through this one. Sorry,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
tell us what had you leaving. What made you leave Syria and what So.
Yeah, cool. So here's the thing, like in Syria, I was categorized as a refugee, because I'm originally Palestinian and do what happened in 1948. My grandfather had to leave, so we were considered as
Mm,
refugees. So while we were growing up there, we all the time had this kind of like idea that we have to go to the Gulf, find a job, get better opportunities, and continue our life.
mhm,
But in Syria, the war started, and I had to be a little bit shorter in plan because when it started, the revolution or the civil war, when it started there, it
mhm,
started to become nastier day after day.
mhm,
So I had no chance but to go to Dubai because my dad used to work in Abu Dhabi for like 40 years. Since the
mhm,
70s he was there. So it was slightly easier for him to bring us there.
mhm,
It wasn't easy anyways. It was super tough for him because when your country is under war, they will, like, all countries will not let you in, or they will make it super, super hard for you to get in.
mhm,
Look at the Ukrainians, for example, or like any kind of like war, that's
mhm,
happening. So that's why I had to go to Dubai because of like better opportunities, of course, to continue my education. When I went to Dubai, I started from scratch. So in Syria, I was studying computer science,
mhm.
but when I went to Dubai, computer science was super, super expensive. So I had no other option but to study business because it's kind of like a little bit like slightly cheaper. And some universities, they had some scholarships. But
Mhm.
to be able to get this kind of scholarship, you have to have perfect English, because you have to do the IELTS or the TOEFL.
Mhm.
And both of them are not so easy. So I did it. I got the scholarship and I continued my studies, and it was pretty good. And then I found a job, and yeah, it was like that. But yeah.
Mhm. Okay. So a little, so now you were considered refugees in
hmm
Syria, and even your father moved there, and then you were born in Syria. You were actually born and raised in
Mm,
Syria, correct?
yeah,
But you were
yeah,
still considered refugees. Uh,
yeah, yeah.
okay. Just a perspective issue because I mean, we in the U.S. we have a much different perspective. You're a refugee, and then the next generation behind you they may I mean
Mm,
they're not classified as
yeah,
refugees
yeah.
any longer, you're what we call second
So
generation Americans, is what
yeah.
is what we call it, and it's just a way of saying you're more part you're more accepted, you're more a part of the culture,
Mm.
you've been raised in our culture of the United States, so you would understand it better. So do you feel like you were maybe you were prejudiced against as a refugee in Syria?
No, no, to be honest, like here's the thing. So you have all these countries, they consider us as refugees because of the right of
Mhm,
returning back,
mhm,
because we have been kicked out from Palestine, and then they say, okay, when these people stay as refugees,
mhm,
according to the United Nations, they still have the right to go back.
mhm,
But me being a refugee in Syria, I was actually like all the others. So I used to have like free education,
mhm.
free healthcare. I used to be treated like all of them. I think the only thing that we couldn't have is just to become president. This is the only
Okay,
thing. But when my friends, like all the Arab friends, when they see me, we have different accents, but when they
right.
see me, they think that I am Syrian because I speak like Syrians, my accent is like Syrian accent.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm more like Syrian than a Palestinian, you know.
Right.
That's why it's a little bit confusing even for my wife, you know. She said like, yeah, but like why you are Palestinian? And even the people in the Swiss government, they said they like, yeah, why he has like travel documents, like Syrian travel documents. He should have a passport, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
then, you know, like we had to explain that, hey guys, yeah, I'm a refugee according to them, but I have the same rights as Syrian people.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So that's actually really interesting. So you went to Dubai, and that's where you went
Yeah,
to school. And we talked a little bit about Dubai because I mean, when you went there, it wasn't was it all was it being it was in the process of being built up to what it is now, right? They were in the process
yeah,
of some of the
yeah,
buildings. I mean, and of course they're continuously building, but
yeah.
and so
My dad,
go ahead.
yeah, so, you know, like it's really crazy when you go to this city and see how it is evolving super quickly, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like my dad told me that, you know, like no one would stay in the UAE, you know, they will just work for a few years and then they just leave, you know?
Mm-hmm.
In the weekend, they stay at home. There's no activity to do. But because Dubai, they had this kind of strategy, like get like low paid labor, bring
Mm-hmm.
them there, let them work, let them build, you know, and get all this kind of attraction. Like they have the tallest building in the
Mm-hmm.
world, they have the biggest mall in the world, you know, and this was like through really painful process from the people. Like when we went to the hotel, like the cleaning lady in the hotel, you know, like that's what people they say, oh yeah, Dubai, UAE, it's amazing place, I will love it, you know, which is cool,
Mm-hmm.
it's amazing, I enjoy it. But imagine you have different like big gap between people. Like so the lady who's cleaning the room,
Mm-hmm.
her salary is $200 per month, you know, or
Wow.
$300 per month.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she works 12 hours every day. She works 6 to 7 days every week, you know, no holiday. Like it's really, really tough
Mm-hmm.
for her.
Mm-hmm.
But because people like her is making really too less money, people who have like normal job, like let's say like you're like in a company, you're accountant, you're in marketing, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and you work in an international company, you can actually enjoy the city because all these kind of services are being provided for you for almost for free, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So that's why people, sometimes my friends like, yeah, it's amazing city to be there. I said like, yeah, it's amazing. You can have a good time.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't really look at human rights somehow, you know,
Yeah, yeah,
if you don't
yeah. So I mean,
consider
it's
that.
amazing, but there's a price to pay. Their
Yes.
society is paying a price for it. Now, on the other hand, I guess the next question would be involved as far as that. This is an economics question. You're definitely more in touch with it than me, but if you don't know, you don't know. Um, so how does that person who makes $200 a month live? I mean, we're not going to
Mm,
compare them to the wealthy people because I mean, the wealth gap is an issue anywhere you go in any
yeah.
society. It's
Yeah.
and but uh, a $200 a month income, to us
Mm,
here in the United States and to you in Switzerland now is just a pittance. I mean, how do you live on that?
mm.
But so how do they? That's the question, I guess.
Yeah. So here's the company strategy. So what they will do, they will go to Bangladesh or India or
Mm,
Pakistan or any
mm,
country. They
mm,
say, okay, we need cleaners.
mm,
So when they bring them, they say, okay, this is your salary. You live in the hotel. You eat from the hotel's food, and you transportation from the hotel.
mm.
So literally, your life is from your accommodation to the hotel, from the hotel to the accommodation.
Oh
You know,
wow, yeah.
and because you're surrounded with people from the same country or the same neighborhood,
Mm,
it become normal for you to have, yeah, you know, why should I go to the mall today? The mall is not for me or for my friend, for us. We can
mm,
hang out in the compound, we can hang out in our room, we can chat with our family back home, and we're
mm.
fine with that. So this is how they survived. Your food is covered, your accommodations,
Okay.
everything's covered. You just work and you get this money and send it back home.
Yeah, you get a little bit of money you send back home, but you don't have to pay for food. You don't have to, and you have a uniform that you wear for most of the time. But then you have
Yes.
a few clothes that you
Yeah.
probably for your more traditional clothing. If you're talking about somebody from
Yes.
from a different perspective. Yeah, that's really
Yeah.
interesting. I mean, and you're right from a human rights standpoint. I mean, it's a balance here because, like I say, you first hear $200 a month and you're like,
Mm,
oh my gosh, that's hardly any money. How do you do anything? How do you pay rent? How do you pay your bills? How do you do? Well, your
mm,
bills are
mm,
all paid. Now you're owned,
mm,
in a sense. This is all but slave labor, isn't it? I mean, it's
mm,
it's
mm.
it's on it's that far from being slavery. People talk about
Yeah.
slave wages here in the U.S. and it's like, wow, that's nothing compared to what they're doing in Dubai, right?
Oh yeah, like my friend told me that for those who work in the construction, like they used to, they used to work as prostitute in the compound
Mm,
itself.
mm,
Like he said, like, hey man, if you wanna have some fun with me, you can just give me like, I don't know, $5 or like $3 and you can have fun with me. Because it's like your life is only within there. And you
mm,
as a guy, you can't go to the mall, you can't go to the supermarket because like there was one guy, he's a cleaner in the building,
mm,
and he told me like, you know what, Kareem, my Dubai is this building, and I'm talking about a building like a huge building, so the
mm,
buildings there, you have like, let's say like 600 apartments, you have
mm,
gym, you have swimming pool, you know, and he told me like, like like Dubai is for me this building. If I will step out of the building and go to the supermarket and buy something, like 30% of my salary is over, because if you want to get sneakers and I don't know, like a drink and some sandwiches,
mm,
it's over.
mm.
So
Right.
this is how they're dealing with it.
Wow. That's pretty harsh, actually. Yeah. Yeah. I
Oh
mean,
yeah, like,
yeah. You know.
but I'll tell you another thing, by the way. So for me,
Mm,
as a person with specific nationality,
mm,
I will I will get certain salary range compared to someone who's from the US, from the Canada, or from any Western country,
mm,
only because of nationality. So I had my
mm,
colleague, he was Canadian, and he was making more than me, even
mm,
though that he was doing exactly the same work. And
mm,
in experience, I'm slightly better than him,
mm.
but he got more salary than me because he has the Canadian nationality, you
Right.
know?
Right.
And one guy came to him, like, in that company, there was one guy from the Philippines, and he was specialist in SEO, search and optimization,
Mm,
and he was doing amazing job. So the guy went to his boss. His boss is
mm,
Swiss, by the way, and he said, "Hey man, I want a pay raise because I noticed that everyone else in the same field,
mm,
they make this amount of money." You know what his answer was? He said, like,
mm,
"Man, look at your Filipino friends. You are making more than them by tons of money.
mm,
So you
mm.
should be happy with that." And then the
Yeah.
guy said, like, yes, but I don't care. Someone else doing the same job is making more money than me. He said, I can make you some, like, I can give you a little bit of raise, but I can't give you what you want. So in his face,
Right.
it was just like that.
That's
Recording in progress.
that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's that's I mean that's just like the fact that they would sit there and separate your incomes based on nationality. Uh,
Mm,
and it is really interesting. I guess it's the only way they're going to get people from the U.S. and from Canada and from these what we call
yeah.
first world countries is to give them the higher income.
Yeah.
But then so wouldn't it benefit them from that perspective to hire more people from Palestine and more
Yeah.
Palestinians and more Syrians? So they would actually not want to hire as many of the U.S. based and Canadian based and Europe based,
So it
right?
depends on the profession. So when you go, so there you have people in the gas station who will put fuel in your car, and these
Right.
people are mainly Indians, Pakistanis, or African. But then you
Mm-hmm.
have people who are inside the supermarket selling you the stuff in the
Mm-hmm.
petrol station. These people are mainly from Asia, Philippines, and these
Mm-hmm.
countries. So you can see this kind of, like, for salespeople, they will
Mm-hmm.
pick up someone like me who speak Arabic and English, and they give a
Mm-hmm.
certain salary. For big, let's say, like models, or like girls to be models or whatever, they will pick
Mm-hmm.
up from Ukraine, Russia. For sales, let's say in international companies, they will
Mm-hmm.
get British or Westerns. It's actually divided like that. It's categorized like that. You know,
Okay.
so you will still recruit people from these countries, from the West countries,
Mm-hmm.
but for specific jobs.
Right. Right. Okay. All right. That's yeah. Okay. Um, so you went from Dubai. You
Mm-hmm.
met your wife in Dubai, correct?
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Okay, and she's from Switzerland.
Mm.
So that's an interesting little story there. I'm sure of it. How did you meet? I mean, was it through work?
Oh
Was it,
yeah, it was like a friend gathering. So he had a gathering. It's like, hey man,
mm,
come, I have a gathering at home.
mm,
Like, just come over. And my friend is Swiss, and work
mm,
with me. And his wife worked in the same company as my wife.
mm,
So his wife's colleagues were there. Him and his colleagues were there as well, and I was there. So we had like normal conversation, yeah, about like multiple topics, and she was a really interesting person. So we went for some coffee drinks. We went out, we hang out, and it's like, yeah, man, I think that I like you. So let's take
Right.
this serious. As you said, like, I'm more like I'm Muslim, so we don't have the girlfriend boyfriend thing.
Right.
So you have
It's
to know
more
the
of
person. It's
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah. So
yeah.
we'll get into your Muslim culture more, but because as in my understanding is that uh, typically a Muslim would not typically be allowed to marry outside of the Muslim faith. Is that typical?
So to correct you here, so a
Yeah.
guy can marry a girl, but
Okay.
a girl can't marry a guy who's not Muslim. My wife, she's
Okay.
Muslim,
Okay. Well, I
so
didn't know that
that's why
either, but
it
yeah,
was.
it was
Oh
no
yeah, so
problem
that's why
then.
it was.
Okay.
Oh no, it was no problem,
Okay.
But in the Islamic faith, you are not allowed. Like for the girl, she's not allowed to marry non-Muslim. For
Yeah.
the guy, he's not allowed to marry atheist. So she could be Jew or she could be Christian. It's fine.
Okay. Okay. All right. That's interesting. So, but no atheists allowed.
Oh yeah.
That's
No, no,
that's actually kind of interesting. So you went from Dubai, you met your wife. She was from Switzerland. So your next move then, but when you moved to Switzerland, that's where you live now.
Oh
Was there
yeah,
anything?
yeah.
Was there anything in between Dubai and Switzerland? Was there any other stopping
No, no, no,
points?
no.
So okay,
No,
so
no.
I
Thankfully, no.
okay. So when did you move to Switzerland?
Yeah, I moved in 2020,
2020.
during the COVID, yeah.
Oh, so right in the middle
Because
of COVID. Yeah, yeah.
before even the lockdown, because everybody was freaking out, if you remember,
Mm-hmm.
and then Dubai wanted to close like in few days, and then I was really freaking out. I quit my job, and then I had to leave, skipping my notice period because you had to have a 30 days notice period. So I
Mm-hmm.
skipped that. I came to Switzerland, and I already worked on finding a job in Switzerland.
Mm-hmm.
Because I told my wife, I can't just go to a new country without me having
Right.
a
Yeah.
job.
Yeah. So yeah, that was a big move for you. That was a risky move in the end as well. Was there a culture shock when you went from Dubai to Switzerland for you?
I will not say a shock, but it's just a little bit different, because in Syria you have totally like it's kind of similar and but different at the same time
Mm-hmm.
to Switzerland.
Mm-hmm.
In Dubai as well, it's similar but different, but in Dubai it's more international.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas here in Switzerland, it's more like Swiss or like, what do you say, like a white culture.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm really used to see Arabs, Asian, white, African all over in one
Mm-hmm.
place. Here
Yeah.
it's mainly like Swiss people. And even when you talk about like work ethics and many other culture
Mm-hmm.
definitions, it's slightly different. But I think me as a person, I really like outgoing person,
Mm-hmm.
so I can fit in any kind of like environment. So it was
Okay.
really fine with me.
Yeah. So and another thing was you just the weather, if nothing else. You went from 120-degree weather in Dubai, which you said you live your life inside the air conditioned buildings.
Yes, yes.
Is how it is. And then you went to Switzerland, which has a much more moderate
Yeah.
summer,
Mm,
and
mm.
then of course a much colder winter.
Yes.
So has that been? So you've been there since 2020, since for COVID. Did that weather change affect you?
Oh,
Shock you a little
yes,
bit? I
yes.
mean, because okay, one of the questions is how much snow had you grown up seeing? Because I don't know what the
Oh,
weather was in
man.
Syria.
Oh, my God. So in Syria, it snows, but not that much. I saw snow maybe 3 times in my life in Syria.
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah. So not much.
And then I came to Switzerland. Yeah, it's not
Uh,
that much, no, no.
so that was
And
a
then I
bit of
came
fun
here.
for you there, dealing with that.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I
So.
don't know, for some reason here in Switzerland, they don't love cloud or rainy weathers. They
Mm,
hate it. But for me, when it's raining, I got really excited. It's like, hey guys, it's raining, because for us in Syria,
mm,
rain means goodness,
mm.
and means that the farmers, they can have better better stuff at the end of the
Yeah,
season.
better crops,
But here
better
in
harvest.
Switzerland,
Yeah, yeah,
exactly. Here,
yeah.
they don't really like it. They hate it. So that's why it was really interesting for me to know this about them.
Sure, sure. So we're kind of running a little low on time, so I kind of wanted to get into this just a little bit, give the audience just a little bit of meat, as far as you know, it, the reason you need to use a pseudonym here of Kareem is to protect family in Dubai.
Yeah.
And why
Yeah.
is that? Why is that? Why do we need to think in terms of safety over? Because here in the U.S. we have, I mean, free speech. I mean, no matter how much people claim that they're, reducing it down, I can go up to my government and redress them and tell them what I really think, and whether they like it or not, whether they do anything with the information I give them or not. I have the right to walk up to my mayor and tell to the mayor of my town and say, I think you're doing a horrible job. I think you're a horrible person, and you need to stop doing it. And you need to change how you're doing things. Okay, so why do you need to be so protective?
Yeah. This is a really good question. Like in the whole Middle East, by the way, not only in specific country, whole of the Middle East, there's no freedom of speech.
Yeah.
Like any word you say that they might not like it, and I mean by them, like the governments, or the people in power, even if it's a normal person, they will immediately try to harm you and harm your family, So it's not only harming you, it's harming your family. Like what happened in Syria, writing one post on Facebook criticizing the special forces, the security forces, but what they're doing was enough for them to come, put you in jail and put your family in jail, torture you and torture them without any consequences,
Wow.
Yeah, just like that. My uncle said it the best. He said, like, they're like mobs, who kidnapped countries. They actually kidnapped countries, like the Syrian government. They sold two locations for the Russian army for 50 years in advance, and they can extend it up to 255 years. But guess what? It's for free. So you
So it's just free land for this period of time with no
free
money.
land.
Just
Exactly.
because, I mean, and because the Syrians are like, Russia versus U.S. Who do I want to deal with? And so there's both sides there. And I'm not surprised that there's people that would take Russia's side. I mean, there, because, I mean, it's a perspective of, I mean, we're the Americans. We come in and we conquer, and we build countries.
Yes,
right?
yes.
So
like it's really funny that in Syria, here's the thing. In Syria, they teach you since you're young that you have to fight against the Americans, you have to fight against the West because they're screwing up the country. Because of them, we are living in a bad situation, which is, I don't disagree 100%, but I don't agree at all because of the Syrian government and the corruption, we have this kind of crap situation, like because when you make your country really weak, countries like Turkey or Iran or US or Russia will have the ability to come and take advantage of you,
Right.
So you grew up thinking like that. You grew up seeing that, we have to fight, we have to blah, blah, blah. But the moment that the Syrian people or Arab people, even in Egypt or Tunisia or Libya or any country, when they went out to say like, we need freedom of speech, the first thing was to shoot these people, with the real bullets. So that's why it's super dangerous.
Yeah, and that, my friends, is why we're calling him Kareem. We really don't want any of his family, because you still have family in Dubai, you still have family in Syria.
Exactly.
And not, and like I said, 99% of my audience is in the U.S. I'm hoping that, I mean, with you, I'm actually hoping to kind of expand that a little bit and just reach out to other people. I think it's a wonderful thing. Kareem, we're out of time because we both have lives to live. This is not going to be anywhere near our last conversation. There's so much more I want to talk about with you. I mean, we have the cultural differences between our faiths. We have so many more differences between our governments and police activities. And there's so much more information for you and I to cover on these things. So, Kareem, thank you so much for sitting down with me. Thank you for putting up with my technical issues. We're going to try some better programs in the future as well. But I love Immersed. I'm going to kind of stick with using this is the Immersed Cafe. If you look in, for people who don't know, this is the Immersed Cafe, and Kareem and I actually met in this cafe as in the co-working environment and started talking, and we realized here we are, total total opposites in how we were raised and how we think and in faith and everything. Okay, well, actually, we both believe in God, so there is that, right?
Yeah.
So we both believe
Exactly.
believe that there was a Jesus,
Yeah.
and so we have a different perspective on Jesus, definitely. But we'll
Yeah.
discuss
Yeah.
that in future episodes, I believe. And
Yeah. Sure.
this was awesome. I really appreciate it, and we'll get a schedule going of some kind to make it work. So
Yeah, man. Let's do it. I love
thank
it.
you, everybody. Be sure to like and subscribe. If you have questions for Kareem, if you want to ask him, you want specific questions for him, for me to ask him, or actually, and he'll probably be kind of keep a half an eye on the comments section of this YouTube video as well. By all means,
100%.
and keep it civil, please. I mean, that's the whole point of this: is that we want to be civil, we want to get to know each other, and reduce the divide among cultures, and that's my goal with this series. So be sure to like and be sure to subscribe for more stuff like this, and we will talk to you later. Thanks a lot, everybody.
Thank you so much.
All right. So Kareem, I think that went really well, and it's funny because
Yeah,
we
man.
only
Recording stopped.
covered a little bit, and we just blew through a whole lot of time, and I think we got some good stuff.